record.
I think also whoever, if you make somebody a co-host, you should both have them, right?
Yeah, I made them co-hosts, but
okay. Sorry.
It's recording, so I think we're good.
I'll be quiet.
Okay. All right, it's still sharing, right?
Yes.
Can you see it? All right.
Okay. So we'll go ahead. And as people join us, that's okay. We'll just keep going and they can get caught up later. Welcome. It's great to have you all here virtually. We'd like to welcome you to our back to school night. This is for 8th grade, so all of our wonderful parents of our wonderful 8th graders, we're glad to have you here.
Sorry. There you
go. So we want to welcome you. First, we just want to say we've been so excited to work with your children again. We really, that first day when we started seeing their faces pop up, we really were genuinely happy. We miss them over summer, and even though it's digital in any capacity, just getting to work with them and see them and interact with them, that really just made us really excited and happy. And we want to provide them, our goal is to provide them with the most robust learning experiences possible. So whether that's through distance learning or whether that's through potentially hybrid learning or full in person, again, no matter what capacity, our goal is to always provide those learning experiences. And so far, just in the first few days, we've been so impressed. We were talking this morning in our teacher meeting about how we're just so impressed with the students' their helpfulness, their engagement. If tech things are going wrong, they're patient. They're like, that's okay. Like, they give us suggestions. Oh, try this, try that. They help each other out. They help us out. They find creative solutions if there's a problem. And so, and they engage. They participate in what's going on, whether it's in the chat or through unmuting or in breakout rooms. They're really just just showing us that these are the same wonderful leading edgers that we know and love, and we're just so impressed with it. We love it. So if you want to go to the next slide. To start off after this, we have a wonderful video made by our coordinator, Mrs. Amanda Goldman. So we'll go ahead and get that playing for you now.
Oops.
And while you guys get that going, I'm just going to say hi to all my 8th grade parents, and then I'll pop into another room. Mr. Negro is not lying. Like, these 8th graders have been on fire. We're so impressed with them, because I will say normally we come back in the beginning of 8th grade and they got a little too much swagger, and it's maybe not so awesome with the 8th graders, and they've just been so impressive. So you can give every single one of your 8th graders a big high five, and not too much because we want them to keep doing it, but big high five. And I'll be available after 6:30 for any questions that anybody needs. So good to see you all.
And then your video is muted there, Joanna.
All right, Leading Edge families, here's Ms. Goldman. Happy back to school night, Leading Edge families. Here's Ms. Goldman coming to you from my office, where I seem to be coming to you from all the time these days. For those of you that have been here at back to school night in person in the past, at least it is a lot cooler inside our homes than it usually is outside. So hopefully you're comfortable and enjoying back to school night. I just have a few things that I want to go over with you all together, and then I will hand you over to the hands of your capable teachers. So hopefully you can see my slides, and my slides say brave leaders and brave learners, and that is our theme. I've said this a couple of times this year, and so I want to talk about bravery for just a little bit. So I am a big Brené Brown fan, if any of you guys like listening to her or reading her, and she talks about bravery in a couple of ways that I found very useful. She talks about new things as being new and wobbly, and back to school night in a virtual platform is definitely a little wobbly. She talks about brave as being uncomfortable sometimes, and she calls out that hard things are hard. This year is gonna be an interesting challenge. It's probably gonna be hard for all of us. And I've said it a million times, we will come through this pandemic on the strength of our community. So here are some things that we've been saying to each other here on campus, to your kids, and we want to all be saying in order to really help us think about how to get through this time that's difficult and uncomfortable bravely. So what Brene Brown says, what Dr. Brown says, is she says, first of all, normalize the feeling that it's weird. So when you're having that moment of like, oh my goodness, I can't get into the Zoom call and the calendar won't work, and oh my God, I know what I'm feeling. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling anxious. Take that moment and take a breath with yourself and with your kiddos. And I think that's going to help with the next two steps, which are, first of all, put it in perspective. Okay, I can't get into the Zoom call, but hey, I have the air conditioning on right now and it's 105 out, so I'm pretty happy about that. Last step, reframe our expectations. We are not expecting perfection from anyone this year. We're not expecting perfection from our students, from our parents, from our teachers. We're coming together as a community, but if it takes a couple of tries to figure out how to get the right system to get you into your Zoom call, that is okay. You are not less than, none of us are less than, because we didn't master distance learning the first time around. So important to remember these things. Dr. Wood, our executive director, also gave us some tips for braving distance learning. He reminds us to find our squad, and those are the people that support you. Here at Leading Edge, we're a pretty tight squad, and we all like to support each other. But looking around at your parent community and saying to each other, "Where's my squad? Who can help me?" Reframing your perspective, and I just want to compliment our Leading Edge community on doing such an amazing job with that. Our grace under pressure from every corner, parents, students, teachers, since we started school a week ago, has been beautiful to see, and I'm so inspired by how well people have come together to help each other and just have perspective. Like, okay, it's not perfect, but we're making progress. So thank you for that, and keep doing it. Keep a hold of your guide. And so I'm going to present to you some tools that can be a guide for you during this time. And just remember that you always have tools and supports. And again, practice grace and patience, probably with yourself more than anyone, but we all have to remind ourselves to be graceful and patient, because we're all engaged in this crazy new experience. And all of those qualities together make us brave leaders and brave learners. So that's our mission for this year. Be brave, do these hard things, and do them as well as we can, recognizing that it's all a learning process. So the message that I have for our students, and I said this to them in the first day of school, and I'm going to say it again, is for all ways that we want to think about it, we are back to school. I know it doesn't look the same. I know we're not on campus, but we are back to school. We are not in that crisis place we were back in March. We're in a different place. We've had a lot of time to prepare. Not a lot of time to prepare. We've had a little time to prepare. We're trying to make it better every day, but we are back to school. School counts. Your grades count. Classes are not optional, and you need to learn. And I really appreciate the message that our governor sent when he announced that all schools were going to start in distance learning in California. He said something to the effect of, health and safety are non-negotiable, but so is learning. So students and families, we as a team are going to do everything we can to make that true, and we need you in on that goal as well. And so far this year, I've been so impressed. Students, you've been troubleshooting. Parents, you've been troubleshooting. We are getting into those classes. We are making learning happen. So very, very proud of you. A couple other details that I want to go over. So one is that parents, we've been having like parent nights every Wednesday. Slow it down a little bit, keep our stamina up, and take it to every other week. So our next one will be, what does it say on that screen? September 2nd. It's very tiny on my screen. And then we'll go every other Wednesday after that, 5:30 to 6:30, and I'll post the topics in advance on our calendar and in the weekly updates. I'm not deciding the topics yet because I really want your experiences to inform that. And so I'll be getting, info from you guys on what you need, and we'll go from there. Make sure you're following us on social media. I've been a little more quiet on social media lately than I have been normally, but I hope that you will be joining us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's the same content that goes to each, but it's a great way to feel connected to community. So hopefully you're following us on social media. And then I was talking about keep a hold of your guide. So I sent this out last Friday. I'll continue to send it out, but we have some resources for you that are very, very useful in terms of keeping a hold of your sanity during distance learning. And I included a little screenshot there. They can all be accessed from our Leading Edge, le.natomascharter.org website. And they're right there on the front page, calling it a digital backpack. You might have seen that term coming from NUSD as well. And there's two things there. There's like a one-pager with all your links, plus there's a little slide deck with videos and links to YouTube and all those good things. So all your links are kind of in one place. If you're ever stuck, that's a great place to go. And then last but not least, I just want to remind you that we're going to be asking for feedback a lot over the course of the next couple of months. We'll try not to overwhelm you, but the more that you can give us that information, it's the better we're going to do to respond appropriately to the needs of our students and our families. So those are just my little details. Before I go, there are some other folks that you're not going to see tonight that I want to make sure you know. So first off, we have our Library Media Center team, Ms. Predel and Mrs. Kelly. They are really instrumental in helping keep our school running behind the scenes right now, helping us with a lot of our tech, but they're also instrumental in making sure your kids are reading. And so they are having weekly book pickup and drop-off times, and all the information is on the slide, and teachers will post it to their Schoology pages as well, because we want parents and students to be able to access books, like actual paper books. Many of you already know Mrs. Curtis. Mrs. Curtis is our social and emotional counselor that works with Leading Edge. This year she'll have another awesome intern from Sac State, Mr. Roman, working with her. Her contact information and her office hours are there, and she also will have it posted in Schoology and various other places. She's a great contact for if your child is struggling and needs some support with managing the emotions and the feelings of distance learning, and she can give you some tips on that. And last but not least, our front office staff, they are here, they're in the building, they are working hard. You probably know them. We have Mrs. Schmidt, who's our registrar, Mrs. Honeycutt, who's our front office coordinator, Mrs. Matson-Bozé, who knows everything about everything always, and has worked with us forever, Mrs. Duquet, who handles our attendance, and Mrs. Loesch, who also kind of supports that, like, whatever you need, she can answer. What I've included on the slide is their first initial and last name, and email them, and the phone number to the front office. I'm going to encourage you all always to go through them also when you're trying to reach me, especially if you're trying to call me, because my phone never works and theirs can always get to me. So they're a great resource in that respect, and they really are here to help. So last but not least, we all want to be back together soon. So the most important step in being back together in person soon is to make sure that we are staying healthy and keeping our numbers in Sacramento down. And so wear your mask, wash your hands, and above all, be brave. And Leading Edge, you've done such an amazing job of doing that this first crazy week of school. I'm so proud. I'm so impressed. I'm so humbled by our community and how our community is being brave together. Let's keep it up. Enjoy back to school night.
All right, so to move on from Ms. Goldman's welcome message, we have some things that are very important for you to keep in mind to let your students know. These are to make your life easier. You can find almost everything in the same place, and that place is Schoology. So Schoology will have weekly folders for every single teacher, and inside those weekly folders are daily folders that show up with the assignments needed for that day. It has literally everything down to the minute of what the student needs to do. The other thing is each student should be able to access their 8th grade Google Calendar. And on this calendar are the links to the classes. So the only thing they have to figure out is, like, do I go to STEM first period or do I go to humanities first period? So all of the links are there. They just have to make sure to click on the right one. There are also links to our office hours as well on their Google Calendar. If you do not see their Google Calendar, you can have them email their teachers, or you can email us yourself, and we can give you guys access to that calendar. The other thing to make your life easier is we have some instructional aids available to help, especially on Wednesdays from 1:50 to 2:30. They're available for 8th graders to access and get any help with either content or just maneuvering through Schoology and the calendar as needed. So moving on from there, there's some things that are obviously new with distance learning, but there's some other things that we would have rolled out anyway this year, 2020. One of them is called Learning Lab. This is happening currently on Tuesday mornings and Friday mornings. This is where students eventually will rotate through different let me close this, different modules that address different skills. So for example, foundational reading and math, social emotional learning, etc. It could be something fun, but for now it's used to make sure that students are getting the skills that they need for their current courses. Wednesdays are a little different because they are independent work. Students don't go to their individual classes. They'll only meet for homeroom, and then they have access to us for office hours for a short while. But then the majority of the day is for them to work on assignments as posted on Schoology. The other difference you might see, since you guys have been with us for 2 years now, is we have what's called homeroom instead of production. So the only difference really is the name. And the class period that it happens in. So it's going to happen during 5th period, which is the start of the day on Tuesdays and Fridays instead of just the start of the day every day. So Tuesdays and Fridays is when they'll see both homeroom and learning lab. The last change that you'll see is that there's STEM and humanities as opposed to science and math as 2 separate courses, and then ELA and social studies as 2 separate courses. So we've cored the subjects together, and Mr. Niger and I will go into a little bit more depth into those when we talk about our individual classes. So here's some information about the instructional aids. I'll show this video for you from Ms. Nobleza.
Hi and welcome, Leading Edge families. I am Giselle Nobleza, the Ed Specialist here at Leading Edge. And a part of our team, we also have Mr. Jose Casares to help support with our humanities classes, as well as Mrs. T. Chadhari, who supports our STEM and math classes. So our role here is to make sure we're providing the academic support to our students in order to see them succeed throughout the school year. And that might look like us pushing into the classrooms, providing one-to-one help, being available on chat or Gmail so that students can reach out to us. And we also have office hours available so that students can come see us if they need additional academic support. If a student is seeing me for regular classes, then that would be for Academic Bridge, which I would be happy to give you more information about during our separate meeting links. But again, we are here for that academic support for all students. I just want you guys to know that we are available during this distance learning. So on the following slide, we have some about me's and contact information, as well as our office hours that is available to you. I'm glad that I can somewhat connect with you guys. But other than that, I just want to let you guys know that I'm looking forward to this year. Thank you guys.
So that's Ms. Nobleza, and she's our ed specialist for Leading Edge. Her team is, and of course the teachers as well, are here to provide academic support for the students. And so her email is there at the bottom. Then we have Mr. Jose. He's a paraeducator for Leading Edge. He has been working with us actually last year as well, so the students are very familiar with him. You can see his email there at the bottom. Ms. Chaudhry is new this year. She's actually worked with Leading Edge before though. She's helping out in the STEM / math classes. And then, like we mentioned, the instructional aides will have, Mr. Jose and Mrs. T will have academic support. So 8th grade there, you can see, will be from 1:40 to 2:30, and students can access through the link. The links will be available to students. And then Ms. Nobleza, as she mentioned, her academic bridge course is on Mondays and Fridays from 11:45 to 1:10. And then Mr. Niger.
Talk a little bit about what the humanities are, and some of you may have seen that your students had an assignment on Monday talking about what the humanities are. So the humanities, they encompass all disciplines that seek to understand how humans, both as individuals and in groups, are impacted by and make meaning of the world. So covers lots of different disciplines, like, anywhere from sociology and psychology a little bit to, the arts, performing fine arts. For this course, we're mostly focusing on English language arts skills and US history standards. So while we're going to look at major concepts, which I'll talk about what those major concepts will be, in a little bit. Those major concepts, we're going to use a lot of our ELA skills that we're developing. So different skills for breaking down both literature and informational text, as well as writing skills, speaking and listening skills. Those things are going to be, I'm viewing as like the tools that we use to really study different peoples and events from U.S. history in order to understand these really important concepts that students are going to be learning. So again, the goal is to really merge both of them. So it's not really ELA in one camp and social studies in another. It's really trying to merge the two so that they're all put together to understand those big ideas. Next slide. So over the course of the year, these are the different units that I'll be covering. And so first, we just start off with an intro to humanities, talk about what the humanities are. Coming up, we're going to look at some important ideas and terms in the humanities, some really important vocabulary that's specific to the humanities that students will need to know. And then we'll do what's called People's Timelines of American History. So we'll look at American history from the perspective of multiple different groups of people. So that will be sort of our way to sort of introduce the year, set us up for the rest of it. Then Unit 2, we're going to look at the concept of rights. What are rights? Where do they come from? Looking at the relationship between institutions and our rights. And this is where we really look a lot at early American history in the Constitution and colonial America and how rights were thought of back then and how they maybe apply today, and looking at current examples as well. Then thinking about how different people responded when institutions deny them rights. And so thinking about the different ways that Americans have attempted or have responded when they feel like their rights have been denied. Unit number 3 is going to look at immigration and culture. So, America is a country that has immigrants. It's built into our history. And so we're going to look at how has that immigration unfolded in America. We're then going to talk about deep culture. So going beyond surface culture into some more deep aspects of culture, such as values and expectations and things like that. And then we'll tackle that big question: what does it mean to be an American? Something that Americans have been trying to answer since this country was started. So we'll get into those conversations. And then the last unit that we get into is really, I feel like one that students last year responded very well to, with maturity and with just being with it and with respect. And so we're going to look at racism and justice, and we're going to have these really difficult conversations, which I know can be kind of scary. It's sometimes scary for me. It can be scary for students and parents. But students, I feel at that point in the year, they'll be ready to have really tough, sometimes uncomfortable conversations, but really important conversations about issues of racism and injustice. And so we really, my goal there is that students have the tools to talk about these really uncomfortable and difficult topics. They have the tools and the skills they need to have those conversations in an appropriate and respectful way that is going to be useful throughout their life as they will continue to have conversations as they grow. And then next slide. So course of a typical day for me, we usually start up with a warm up and vocab/journal, and that'll take us about 10 minutes. So we do some word study and learn some words that are going to be important, and then we do some writing that will hopefully give them some of that writing practice, that low pressure writing practice. Then we move into whatever the assignment or lesson is for that day, and we take about 30 minutes for that. That could be maybe the whole lesson. 30 minutes is synchronous, so happening with the students, we're having discussion or conversation, or we're having a back and forth lesson. Or it could be there's an assignment that they're working on, or there's a project that we're working on, and I maybe take a few minutes to explain what it is, and then they dive right in and get to work on their own or in their groups. Then I'll take a little break. I usually play, just a quick little fun game just to break up the long period that they have. Students don't have to play the game, and some of them do. Some of them just kind of take that time to, get up, go to the bathroom, stretch, relax a little bit. Then we come back to whatever the assignment or lesson was and spend about 15 more minutes. That's also a good time as well. If, there's some final issues before submitting, we can address those. And then 15 minutes will be spent on reading. Currently, I'm working on a way to restructure reading, because the way I was originally going to do it might not work due to tech issues. So I'll be working on for next week a way to have them have that reading time. And then we do a closing, which is 5 minutes. That's usually I'll present them with a little poem or maybe it's an interesting video or image or quote, and we spend a little bit of time talking about it, breaking it down, and responding to that. Next slide. So Wednesday work time for my class, they have several things. They have read aloud recordings. So what this is I'm asking them to create an audio recording of themselves reading aloud from any text that they like. It could be a book, it could be a news article, it could be a sports article, it could be something they've read before, but I just want them to have that practice reading aloud, because when students read aloud, it's a different way that the brain processes what they're reading, and it helps to improve fluency and it helps to improve comprehension. So they spend 10 minutes reading aloud and then 5 minutes talking about what they read, what they think about it, what they like, what they dislike, what are their opinions about what they read. And so that is for about 15 minutes of that. Then they'll have one iReady lesson per week, and that is something they need to take and pass. So last year when we did distance learning, it was by minutes. This time we're making it by lesson. So they have to actually complete the lesson and pass it. And if they're having trouble passing, then I definitely encourage office hour time, and we can work through it together and all of that. Then they'll have one Novello assignment, and they have details on that. They'll take a quiz, they'll break down the Novello that they're reading, and that'll give them some practice with informational reading. And then if they finish early, that's a chance to get caught up on independent work. Today was our first day trying out this Wednesday work time, and a lot of them were super on it, and I was getting lots of emails of students trying to work through the assignments, which was awesome. And then we on those Wednesdays, there's a drop-in office hour for all teachers, myself included, from 11 to 11:30. Next slide. So difference between synchronous and asynchronous, you guys have probably heard this term a million times, but just to clear up, so synchronous is happening with the teacher, so we're all doing the same thing together as a class. This could be a discussion, or this could be a certain kind of lesson or some kind of activity that we've created. And asynchronous means on their own. Now, for asynchronous assignments, I'll still usually be there, and they can come back and forth and ask questions and get help. And then we usually come back as a class, as you saw earlier in the schedule. So for synchronous class, I like cameras to be on during warm-up. I understand sometimes if there's a tech issue, or sometimes, with a lot of students with cameras on at once, sometimes some of them don't work, and that's okay. I was going to have it with reading time, but that was creating some tech issues. And so I'm going to restructure that. And any small group lesson. So if I might pull some students into a breakout room and work maybe 10 at a time on some skill or some lesson. And in that case, their cameras would need to be on. The norms. So, and so far I really have had minimal issues with this, but we just want to make sure that when they use the chat, it's appropriate and productive. So students can use the chat feature. We encourage it for them to ask questions. They've been doing great at using it to help us teachers with troubleshooting issues. They use it to participate. So I'll say, what do you guys think? And people will put answers in the chat, and that's awesome. We also request that they stay muted unless we've asked them to unmute to say something. And then we just, like in any situation, we expect that class time's used effectively. And then in terms of consequences, first violation, I usually send them a little private message just saying like, hey, let's refocus. Second time, conversation after class. And third or repeated second violations on multiple days is a parent contact. So that's when I'll usually reach out. None of you have been contacted by me yet, because none of the students have had any issues with that, which is awesome. And then asynchronous assignments, like I said, they're expected to stay on the call while they work independently, and I'm available the whole time. All of my assignments are due the next day by 3:30 p.m. So if I assign something on a certain day, it's not due till the next day by 3:30 p.m. So that always gives students and lots of time to complete it, and it gives you as parents time to go over it with them. It also allows for them to be able to attend at least one office hour in case they need some help. Next slide. And then for my late and redo policy, so if it's late within 1 week of the due date, I will accept it up to 85% credit. And anytime after the first week, it'll be up to 60% credit. If they are turning in late work, then they must come to an office hour to talk about it. So they'll always have the option of turning in late work, but they do need to come to an office hour just so that I can see what's going on. What happened? Is there something that was confusing? Is there something, is there, you're having difficulty staying organized? Is there something I can do to help that? And so that's the late policy. For the redo policy, they can redo any assignment for full credit. If it was submitted completed, they can redo it anytime for full credit. If it was submitted incomplete, then only partial credit can be earned back. But if it was turned in full, but it just had some issues with it, then that's they can redo it. Students must email me to notify me of any redone assignments. That's just so I know. I don't often know, and then students, redid an assignment and are wondering why it wasn't fixed. So they just need to say, hey, Mr. Negro, I redid this assignment. When you get a chance, could you please regrade it? And then, that's it. Next slide. So book checkout. So I'm trying to make sure that students have access to my classroom library. I have so many books in there, and they're sad and lonely just sitting on my shelf. So I wanted to get them out to kids. I also have articles that I like to print out and poetry and things like that for students to be able to read. So I'm currently collaborating with the Library Media Center with Ms. Predel and Ms. Kelly to add reading materials to their weekly pickup. So today I was only able to get enough books from last names A through D, but by next Wednesday, I should be able to have everyone's book packets ready. So every Wednesday from 2 to 4, when the LMC is doing pickup, I add my books to that. And so all of your children filled out a little reading survey at the beginning of during last week. And based on that, I created some book recommendations, and I'm working on creating the rest of them and getting those books together for them. But if you have any questions about that, feel free to contact me. I'd love to hear from you about if there's an alternative that you need or anything like that. Next slide. And so then these are my office hours, Monday and Thursday from 2:50 to 3:30, and then Wednesday from 11 to 11:30, and those are on the Google Calendar. And so that'll be it for humanities. If you have any questions, you can stop by the optional Q&A.
All right, so just to introduce STEM to everyone. So this course is a combination of math and science, the actual courses from last year, combining what Ms. Neary taught and what I taught, but now in 8th grade. So Mondays and Thursdays will be focused mainly on math. And you might have noticed the new textbook that your students brought home. That is our new curriculum. We have an online version of the textbook as well. So while Tuesdays and Fridays, we're gonna focus on science. You'll have some assignments and projects that will overlap days, but I mentioned to students just to be sure to check when the due date is. And then you will see only one course on Schoology called STEM, but in the gradebook, you'll be able to see that the categories of math and science are kind of split up, so you can see how each student, or how your student is doing in each course, or each, topic. There's some very important things that students will need. Of course, Schoology, as I mentioned earlier. And then the online books are very, very helpful because the textbooks don't have like homework help in them. The online books, they have links in each homework assignment, so they can click on and get some extra help for it. And then also there are some tools where they can graph online, things like that are very useful in the ebooks. And then also we're going to be using Google Classroom for both science and math. I've gotten the students all logged into that, but just so you're aware as well, parents. So submitting work, we have both group work and independent work that happens on a daily basis. For submitting group work, I ask that each student submits their group's work individually so that I can see that they've completed it. Otherwise, I don't see anything in the Schoology gradebook to actually grade. I know it's different in person. I could like see them working on it. I don't see that always in breakout rooms. So they're submitting their work independently. And then they have independent work as well. I've asked that they do some math problems on paper and they just submit that as a picture. And then some like the online graphing tools, they can take screenshots and submit that as well. Most assignments that I've done so far, especially the ones that we do synchronously, I make them a Google Doc or a slide, and so it just automatically creates a copy for them. So they kind of always know where that is. And then I wanted to mention specifically that if your student is having trouble submitting things or having trouble accessing anything, that they need to make sure that their work is shareable to Natomas Charter School or people with a Natomas Charter School email address. So just something to mention to your students if they're having trouble. So in math, we're going to see a lot of functions and equations and some expressions as well. Then we'll move into some geometry, some transformations and patterns, and then some scatter plots and data analysis. Ratios and unit rates kind of tied throughout the entire book. We actually are seeing some tomorrow. We'll see some proportional relationships, and then nonlinear functions, so moving into some exponential functions. We'll see similar figures. So notice how there's geometry throughout the entire book. So this is what I really like about CPM is they bring in old topics as we go. We'll see the Pythagorean theorem, some square and cube roots, and then some more exponents, as well as scientific notation. This also helps us a lot with understanding some science topics. And then some more geometry with the triangle, angle, sum, and volume and surface area. So this is kind of the order of topics. Again, keeping in mind, we'll keep reviewing throughout the year. And then for science, we're actually starting with what's called, our first unit is called Colossal Collision. So we're talking about some asteroids. And so these are the rest of the topics we'll see throughout the year. We'll see some evidence of common ancestry and diversity, forces in motion, types of interactions, definitions of energy, defining and delimiting engineering problems. So you'll know that just to let everyone know, so STEM stands for science, tech, engineering, and math. So although the courses are science and math put together, we will definitely put some tech and engineering in throughout it. So those are the rest of our topics. I won't read every single one, but just so you have an idea of what they will be. When we're working together, I have just some collaborative learning expectations of my students. And so I share these with them whenever we do group work. So our goal, especially in math, is to develop new ways of thinking about math, to communicate about math, and we'll use this in science as well, and then understand ideas to better explain your thinking to others. And so I use this acronym. T is for together, E is for explaining, A is for asking, M is for the members of your team as your first resource, and then S is smarter together than apart. And then of course, just like Mr. Niger, I have office hours just on the opposite days. So I have them from 2:50 to 3:30 on Tuesdays and Fridays with my Zoom link there as well. Okay, so here's some information from Mrs. Sanchez, our technology teacher. She teaches both 7th and 8th still. Oops, I have to.
Hello and welcome to the technology presentation for 8th grade back to school night. I'm not with you this evening as I am in the 7th grade meeting to meet parents who are not familiar with me yet, but you of course are familiar with me. Again, I'm Tricia Sanchez, my 23rd year teaching. I'm excited to still be at Leading Edge and even more excited to be at Leading Edge during this time. This is a great place to be for these crazy learning experiences. And I will still be a facilitator of learning even though we are virtual. You remember my quote from last year, hopefully, and if you don't, if you are new to Leading Edge, welcome. This is the quote that guides my my teaching in this class. That the problems that are created today can't be solved with the level of thinking that created them in the first place. So really needing to focus on that creative thinking and problem solving is my #1 goal in technology. So in technology, remember, it's not about the tool. It's about the creative thinking, the sharing of our thinking, the building on others' ideas. It's about being that responsible creator and consumer as we process and consume a ton of digital media and produce and create a lot of that media as well. And in 8th grade, we're really going to focus on design thinking and using that thought process to problem solve. We are still going to be blogging. I think blogging is going to become even more important in this virtual environment so far this year. It's a way to get kids out
and have them comment on each other's and to get comments from outside of school so that they can feel that they're connected. So we will continue those blogs this year. Here are the differences between 7th and 8th grade. Really, it's about the autonomy they get, more autonomy to make their choices in their learning, to problem solve, to create. We use the design thinking protocol much more in 8th grade as we still learn tools and we still work to build our learning community. In fact, our learning community, I think, becomes more connected in 8th grade because of all of that autonomy. The 8th grade syllabus is attached here. Looks like last year, but we do have some distance learning ideas in here. So I will let you peruse that on your own. This is also, if you're in Schoology, this is in the resource folder, and you can find this linked there also. I guess this comes as no surprise that in technology this year, you'll need a device and you'll need earbuds or a headset with a microphone. It'll be kind of hard to do class without those two things this year, but I think we're there. I think we all have these things. Finally, if you have any questions, please pop into my Q&A later on this evening. And if you have questions later on, please don't hesitate to email. I'm always here for you and whatever support you may need. Thank you and have a good evening.
Okay, so here's so her slides are here. This will be available to you guys. Ms. Goldman will send it out. Then from Mr. Shane.
Hello, Leading Edge families. My name is Mr. Shane, and obviously I'm coming to you virtually from my PE office. Welcome to Back to School Night for 7th and 8th graders. This year I'll be teaching a combined class of 7th and 8th graders. So I will have your students in a class together with the other grade level. And I'm very excited for this opportunity to reach all 7th and 8th graders virtually for my PE class. A couple things. Number one, I'm happy to be back at NCS. This is my 15th year. I know it's been very challenging and different, especially at the end of last year. But I feel like myself personally have taken on the challenge of distance learning and feeling very confident in the course content that I will be delivering this year. Have it be hybrid or eventually when we get back to on-campus learning. This video is intended for you to give a little direction of what my expectations are this year. And I'm taking this as an opportunity to really look at physical education as a lifelong experience. Believe it or not, they don't have PE classes for all through high school or even in college unless you choose it as an elective. And so this is a great opportunity for me to start getting their mindsets into how to exercise on their own, what to do when some facilities are limited, and get them in a routine that exercise benefits not just the body, but the mind. I'm going to go over a couple of Schoology posts or some folders here, just to give you a little better direction on how to navigate if you need to help your students. I'm going to share my screen here real quick. Here you have our Schoology folders. And basically what I've done and what I have talked to the students so far this year is creating a routine. Routine is really important in my class because you think of the terminology, exercise routine, workout routines, all right, those things that we get into making things a habit. So I really want to make this at-home distance learning a habit of, hey, I need to exercise today, or it's not my PE class day, but I am going to go ahead and do this workout again. So when you go into Schoology, you'll see a couple things. Number one, you'll obviously see the folders. And this is just a quick example of what to expect when you get into my folders. Okay. Number one, I'll be doing a attendance check or some type of class question, and that has no point value or weight to the grade. It's just kind of like an introduction. It's a way of kind of getting a feeling of how the students are feeling, and it also creates a discussion point for me, like right in the beginning. I'll probably pull up 3 to 4 students' questions, or not questions, but answers, and see if we can kind of guess how they're feeling. For an example, this week was, do you like the heat, right? A lot of kids don't like the heat. Some kids love the heat. So that's that. So if you see the attendance score on Schoology, it has no weight to the grade. It's just more of a place setter. You would be going into our Learn, Do, Connect part, and that's going to be basically the routine. The learning aspect of class this year is going to be just on some exercise principles. We're going to work on 5 components of fitness that we've done. We're going to work on our FIT principles: frequency, intensity, time. And then we're going to be doing some heart rate. A lot of the things that I'm incorporating, especially in the beginning of the year, are things that we ended on last year. So they should have a pretty good foundation of the material. We'll just probably expand on it a little more. So that's usually our learn section. Our do section is our workouts, right? So we had a great workout this week, and the workout sessions are from 20 to 30 to 45-minute workouts. So I will be probably adding workouts as we, longer workouts as we kind of condition our body and feel more comfortable with it. And then our connect is going to be either a discussion post on goal setting, some reflection of the workouts. I might give them 1 or 2 points to focus on during the workout, or it will be some type of quiz or assessment on our learn component, right? An example would be this week, I think I'm doing the 5 components of fitness matching the definitions, right? That would be our assessment. And all of our connect assignments are due in class. So I give students plenty of time to finish it. And there really is no homework when it comes to the classwork that I'm presenting in class. The only homework that will be required this year will be an exercise log that will be for the off days of PE. I haven't pushed that out yet, so I'm just getting the kids kind of familiar with their schedule, their workload, until I start pushing out more challenging materials, things that they can follow along outside of class. Great. So hopefully that answers some questions. I will be available in our back to school drop-in Zoom meeting. A couple things in closing. Just make sure that your student has a safe spot to exercise, right? That's real important. So we've talked about that in class. I know a lot of them like to do it in their room, but if you have a smaller room in a small little section, maybe go ahead and move to the living room. Maybe you have a extra room, not the kitchen. The kitchen's not a good for exercise. So let's try to find a good space, and then let's keep that space. Let's keep that space designated for our exercise. Another thing is I will be asking students to leave their cameras on when they're doing the workout. That way I can make some quick assessments on movement patterns. Maybe there's a specific technique that we were learning in the Learn Connect that I need to make some assessments on. So they need to have their cameras on, and I need to be able to see them do it. That's number 1. And then number 3, okay, encourage, if you're at home with them, or if they had PE this day, I would encourage you to ask, hey, did you have PE today? How was your PE class? What did you guys do? Discuss the exercise with them. And then if you want to go above and beyond, maybe you can do the workout with them over the weekend. Maybe you can have them show you an example of what to do. Like, hey, you know what? Show me some of those plank jacks again, or show me 1 or 2 things that you did in class. How many push-ups can you do? And so some of those things are important to make that family connection as well. So I hope this helps. And like I say, I will see you at my back to school drop-in, and have a great evening. Thanks.
All right, so moving on to one more, Miss Novello, and Miss Novello wanted to let you know that she is not actually available for the drop-in Q&A. So you can direct questions to me and Mr. Nigro after, if you have any more after the video. Well, I have to play it. Okay. There we go.
Welcome. My name is Janelle Novello, and I'm the 7th and 8th grade expressions teacher. And thank you for coming to Back to School Night. I'm going to present my screen. It's so good that you're all together and that our kids are back to school. It feels really good to be back teaching again. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, I'm the 7th and 8th grade teacher, and this is a back to school presentation COVID style. So a little bit about me. I live in Winters, California, and if you've been on the news, you may have heard that Winters is having a little fire crisis, and so that's why I'm not here tonight. I am packed up and ready to go at a moment's notice, and fingers crossed, I'll be still in my garage tomorrow doing distance learning and not evacuated. In terms of credentials, I have both a multiple subject and a K-12 art credential. I love experimenting with different art techniques with my students, and this is my 18th year teaching at Leading Edge. 7th and 8th expressions expands on the 6th grade experience by introducing new mediums and techniques. I feel like my strength is integrating cross-curriculum content with hands-on experiences. And this year, more than ever, my goal is to provide that social and emotional support through the creative process. We all need that right now. I've built a curriculum around the sketchbook that I sent home with students earlier, a week and a half ago. And all the curriculum is designed to fit within the 85-minute block of class period. So on Zoom meetings, I'm on them for the entire period, from the beginning to the end, giving directions at the very beginning, just like I would in class, then asking kids to complete a task within the meeting, cameras off during that work time, bringing them back halfway to do formative assessments, and then sending them back to complete a task, and then requesting that students upload their progress to Schoology. And this requires students to take pictures of their work and upload it digitally. I also include a directions slide in Schoology in case students are late to a meeting and missed some chunks, or maybe they were absent during that class period, or maybe after school, if they're still working on a task or want to touch up on some things, they can go to that direction slide to get some extra support. So I linked one here for you to see. This is an example of the direction slide. It's basically a to-do list, and it's in every single folder. And then there's also a little screencast where I've recorded the directions and gone a little bit more in depth in case students need that resource. So that's a little bit about assignments. So about assessments and the grading criteria, emphasis is always on effort. I feel like creating is kind of like lifting weights. So long as you're trying and lifting as hard as you can, you're demonstrating effort. And so I use rubrics. The sketchbook has a rubric in the very front of it that breaks down how each assignment page is going to be assessed. I also post project rubrics in Schoology, and so students can see, and you can see how they're being assessed with their rubrics. And there are some weighted categories in this year's syllabus. The categories include meetings, and that's when I give direct instruction, seek participation, learning and doing is part of the creative process. That's a category that also incorporates the studio habits of mind. And then the connection category is where students actually produce their art. Sometimes they're doing some reflection pieces. So success in expressions is something that all students can experience, and we're partners with that. And I'm here for you just as much as I'm here for students. So long as students come prepared and on time and ready to learn, they are going to experience success. I know that right now things might be a little bit rocky, and that's probably in part with adjusting to distance learning and navigating Schoology and learning how all the teachers are assigning assignments. And we're going to have some grace and some flexibility as kids are transitioning in these first few weeks back to school. But so long as students come prepared and on time and ready, they work through the class period. Students need to review daily folders in Schoology. They're using their device or some form of digital way to take pictures of artwork. They're going to need to submit it in various locations, not just for my class, but other classes too. And communication, email me. I also have office hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Wednesdays as well. So communication is key, and I'm your partner in all of this. So please reach out to me if you are struggling, or if your student, your child has a question, encourage them to email me as well. I know it's going to be different, but it is going to be a great year. So thank you for joining this meet tonight. And if you want to communicate with me, I also have some social medias that you can follow. Have a great night.
So there's Ms. Novello's email if you need it as well, and I believe that is all for us. It is actually 3 minutes over time, but the teachers are now going to pop out and go into their own Zoom question and answers, so you can access those and ask any individual teacher questions as needed. Remember that those will not be recorded like this one was. See you guys there.